Because I'm wanted. Dead or alive.
Wait, are you on a steel horse?
On the steel horse I ride. I wish Mike Rowe was here.
Hey, welcome to iFanboy, the comic book discussion show. I'm Ron.
I'm Connor.
I'm Josh. Wanted movies, big movie.
Yes.
Just came out.
But you should probably know it's based on a comic book series by Mark Millar and J.G. Jones. So we thought, hey, we do a comic book show. Why don't we talk about the comic that the movie is based on?
Because probably lots of people haven't read or know.
And people might not know. I mean, it's not that they're not really pushing it as a comic book movie, which is interesting.
There's no spandexy people.
Yeah, the capes and things like that, and it's not a well-known property. It's a more recent comic book. It came out recently, in
Or 2004.
2004.
That also works.
It was written by as Josh mentioned, by Mark Millar and drawn by J.G. Jones. It's published by Top Cow, which is a studio of Image Comics. And it's an interesting comic. It's one actually I hadn't read up until recently.
Yep.
Okay. Very briefly, we'll go over, I guess, what it is.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about it.
Yes.
I know we're going off the beaten track here at iFanboy this week.
It's a short series.
It was a miniseries, 6 issues, and it's about a kid who finds out that his dad was a supervillain. And basically, the dude, Wesley Gibson, is not William Gibson, popular science fiction writer. Wesley Gibson
level of...
is just a dude who works at a cubicle, and his girlfriend's shitty to him, and he's just a normal guy. He's a guy, and his life is kind of crappy.
It's very much a lot like the lives that a lot of people. It's very realistic in that portrayal of this is the
Let's save the analysis. Let's just power through because I know this is going to come up, and I don't want to repeat it.
So he goes into he's ordering his sandwich, his salmon on green mustard yellow sandwich that he orders every day, and the fox, who's a very attractive killer girl from the hood, she comes up to him and says, just blow this off and come with me, and you find out about
basically
your dad.
he gets the tap. He gets
he finds out that nothing that he thought was as it really was, and behind all of these things, the supervillains are ruling the world as they have been since 1986.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the story. I mean, he's open. So his life has changed. He's open to a whole new world of evil.
He finds out that his dad was the most badass killer ever, and that he's also pretty good at it, given the chance. So they train him and they desensitize him, and then a war erupts in the supervillain community.
So the elevator pitch, or the high concept thing, is a world where the superhero is lost, and it's a world where the supervillains now rule, and they've done something to make everybody forget that it happened. And
they're like the mafia.
They're like the mafia, but times the world.
There's the 5 families, and each one runs an inhabitable continent.
Right.
But for me, I mean, it's more about the fact that what if you found out you weren't who you thought you were?
Right, but I mean, that's just the background. This is a really controversial book, and in fact, most times when this book is brought up in our forums on the website, someone says I love it, someone says I hate it. Someone says it's the worst thing in the world, somebody says it's the best thing in the world. This is a very polarizing book.
Well, and part of it is Mark Millar's flair for the large,
showman.
Showman. You know, like he can write great scenes. Like these things that are unforgettable and things that make you remember, but there's sometimes criticism as far as the whole story being pieced together and that sort of deal.
So Josh, you are the only one of us who read it in issues when it came out?
I did. I read all 6 issues. I believe Connor actually informed me that the first issue was my pick of the week.
Your first, number 1 was Josh's pick of the week, yes.
Way back.
And why was it your pick of the week?
Well, I actually recently reread it. I hated this book. I have been one of those people for a long time. I think it's incredibly antisocial. I think it is. There's nothing to root for in it. They're bad people in it, and so basically, even the best people in the book are literally rapists and killers. And I think, having just reread it again, just to make sure that I didn't still hate it, and I wouldn't, I can see definitely good points about it. But there's still an underlying sort of very, very disturbing antisocial theme that I don't like about it, I don't like about the characters. The first issue, that's not actually terribly apparent yet. The first issue that, when reading it, I was like, I can see why I picked the first issue, because the first issue doesn't touch on that stuff yet. The first issue is my regular life as a 24-year-old blows.
Yep.
Right.
I just found out there's much more to life than I thought.
Right. And you got possibly one of the greatest opening scenes in modern comics, if you ask me, where it just opens up to the shot of his girlfriend having sex with somebody else and his narration going, "This is my girlfriend. She's having sex with my best friend."
Yeah.
And like right out of the gate, for me at least, reading it, because I read it recently, and it was one of those books that I knew you had read it, I knew that you had strong feelings about it, but I just never read it for whatever, like sometimes things slip through the cracks. So I finally picked it up when the movie was coming out. I was like, cool, let me check it out. And that first page and that first scene to me was like the comic book reached up and punched me in the face. I was like, this is unlike anything I'm gonna read because it's a little more realistic, because it's a little more in your face, as much as I hate to say that. And no, it wasn't extreme, but it was shocking.
It was. I think that the art by J.G. Jones. I got off on a track. I don't really know when I want to go into this yet, so I'll let the stuff go, and then we will discuss. The art by J.G. Jones is an undeniable strong point of this book. The dude doesn't do interiors very often. He's doing Final Crisis now.
Yeah.
He's really very, very good.
Yeah, he's great.
And in fact, this book is better than what I've seen of Final Crisis.
Yeah, I didn't mind the fact that because he does photo referencing for his characters. I didn't really mind it here. He does. Eminem is the main character, and Tommy Lee Jones is the father,
and Halle Berry is the fox.
Yeah, so it's like I didn't really mind it because he wasn't doing straight like light boxing. He made them. He drew them with their faces. But for me, thematically, Wanted was very, very similar to Fight Club.
Yes.
In that your normal everyday life, whether or not you feel trapped, you are trapped in it,
Yep.
and you should free yourself from it. Whether or not you should go to the extremes that he goes to, that's one thing. But I thought the ending, which is very controversial, was very poignant because you may be in your job and you may have your things, but you're trapped by them.
Right. Yeah.
And you should free yourself from that. That was the theme of whether or not you should go and murder and rape and kill.
And that's where I think that.
And that's the real distinction, because the point in the story when he accepts the fact that he's got a natural knack for being a supervillain that's carried down from his father, and then accepts it and gets trained, he then realizes that he can take what he wants, he can do what he wants, he can rape whoever he wants, and they do it. And I could see, and it's funny, not until you said that, and maybe I'm just a bad person, but I never was just like, oh, that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, the problem is with that argument is that's the same argument that says why Grand Theft Auto shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go rape anybody, I promise. And
you know what? Because it's the R word. It's the continue. Every time they use the word rape in that book, it slapped me in the face because all of a sudden, like, I'm almost desensitized to the killing. Because, like, the thing is that killing is actually, this is sort of philosophical, killing is sort of impersonal, in comic books at least. Something explodes, a bunch of people die, you shoot somebody from a distance, whatever. They kept talking about, I raped some bitch.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's awful. Because it's, and that
But
every
it's supposed
time.
to be awful, though.
I know that, but I can't root for a character who's a rapist.
You're not supposed to root for him.
I don't know what I'm supposed to root for then.
You don't root for anyone, you just read the story.
Right, and that made me feel awful every time.
Well, like,
I didn't want to watch anything else that happened to him. I wanted to be out of it because he was taking it so nonchalantly. And to me, like, there's certain things in the world that are like you can get around with, you can do fiction on, but like every time they were like, oh yeah, and we raped his wife, and they showed pictures of her being raped, and I was just like,
but it's like it's like Clockwork Orange. It's like anything that follows bad guys. There's a valid story to be told with people who are not good. You don't always have to root for the people that you read about. There was a series called Empire that Mark Wade did a few years ago that not
Barry Kitson drew.
Barry Kitson, not people bought. It was about what happens when the big bad guy, I'm taking over the world, when he actually does it. And then nobody in that was good. They were all bad. But it was like, there's an interesting story to be told. Now, rape is horrible, but it's like, I didn't feel like I had to root for him, but at the same time, I found his journey to be interesting.
Right.
Whether or not he was a horrible person, which he was, it was still like, the arc he took was good. I think you almost expect him to go good at the end, and he doesn't. Which is also interesting.
I didn't want him to do that. I bought every issue. I stuck with this to the end because I was like, I just couldn't tell where it was going to go or what it was going to ultimately be about.
Right.
But that was that's literally the thing that kept sticking with me. I was like, ugh.
Well, I think that's why he did it, because if he says I went out and killed the guy, you wouldn't have even blinked at it. So it has to be the next thing that's horrible, because as you say, killing is there's a dime. People are dying a dime a dozen in comic books, but you don't often get horrible stuff that you really register with. Especially in the superhero sense, because like when the guy is shot in the beginning, all right, he was shot. Like you don't really,
you
don't stop. It doesn't stop
well,
you.
like there was a couple of the killings though, because what he did was, and I'm sure this was his Mark Millar's purpose, I think, was what he did was like he made the killings like he's like, I was bored, I went into a police station, I shot all the cops, and I was just like, that's so bad.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, and like every time it just kept hitting me. I was like, that's so bad, and I get the sense that like it wasn't fun for me at all. That's the like sometimes like. And it's funny that you bring up A Clockwork Orange because it's literally one of my top favorite 5 films of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're all awful.
They're all awful.
I realize that, but it's also
the statue.
The world is not our world, I guess. And like in this one, like he really made an effort to me to make everything real. Like when he talked about a rape or a murder, like it was you did it in real terms. Whereas in A Clockwork Orange, there's silly music playing at the same time, and there's stuff that makes that world just skewed enough so that you can, you don't root for Alex, but the whole thing is so weird.
Right. Well, yeah, I thought it was really interesting because the reality of it, because while I was reading, I kept on thinking how this is unlike anything else I'm reading right now because of that steeped in reality type thing. And Millar, he's doing that currently now with the series at Marvel, 1985, where it's so steeped in reality, it's almost believable. But then the twist of the supervillains being in there and this, kind of our world mixed with this, comic book world is what really kind of captured my imagination. And there are a lot of ties to comic books and influences from comic books, and we'll talk about that in a second after our sponsors.
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. You can head over to GoDaddy.com and get any kind of domain name that you need. They have it. And if you tune in June 29th through July 5th, you can see GoDaddy girl Amanda Beard as she makes her bid for Beijing in the U.S. swim team time trials. Yay, GoDaddy. And this episode of iFanboy is brought to you by Netflix.com. Netflix is awesome because they have over 90,000 titles, including lots of Blu-ray titles, with free shipping to and fro your house. So check out Netflix.com. And this episode of iFanboy is brought to you by eMusic. eMusic is awesome because they deliver songs to you in the universally compatible MP3 format, which means your music plays on your iPod, your Zune, or whatever else you might have. There are no restrictions and no DRM hassles. Awesome!
There are a ton of archetypes in this book. Basically, this is one of those things where there's a bunch of supervillains, and there's a lot of hero, and there's antecedents in the superhero world. It's taken that thing.
It's very focused on Millar's appreciation for the DC universe. I think like this is meant to be the DC universe. I would be surprised if this was dreamed up as like an Elseworlds tale, and they said, no, we can't do that.
Well, the whole thing is because the war that kills all the heroes happens in '86, which is when Watchmen and when Dark Knight came out and changed the tone, and changed the tone of the DC universe. So it's kind of the whole allegory is the whole DCU has gone darker. Here's it's gone really dark.
And in Wanted, the comic, they actually do say in 1986, after this war, the whole world became a little grimmer and grittier, which is how that age after 1986 has been described in comics. So you've got the grim and gritty world. You've got the 1986. If you look at all the characters, there's a lot of opinions as to who they're based on or whatever. Right. But the main character, Wesley the Killer, right? That's the character's name. Yeah. It's been said he's based on kind of like a Deathstroke the Terminator or Eminem.
Slim Shady.
Deathstroke the Terminator Deathstroke the Terminator or Deadshot from.
But his allegory is not so apparent, but like there's like a Toy Man character. Yeah. He's also part Lex Luthor. There's a Joker character. I mean, there's all of that, and then you encounter through flashbacks or sometimes not the Superman, the Batman, the Wonder Woman, and then the villains won the war, but they didn't actually kill everyone. They basically just made them forget that they were heroes. So they just humiliated them. Superman's in like he's in an asylum, isn't he? He's sitting in the chair staring at the
And the Batman Robin thought they were just TV stars. And
they thought they were Adam West and Burt Ward.
I actually liked what he did to Superman was he cloned him and made a Bizarro, which was fuckwit.
Yeah.
And listen, there are things that I can appreciate this book, and we'll get into it in a minute, but Fuckwit I thought was really funny.
I mean, that's the thing is that Millar has a knack to take things and make them funny, but also make them ridiculously serious at the same time, and
in a way that's completely not as skilled as Garth Ennis can do it.
Well, yeah, in a different way. I mean, Millar's an odd bird. I mean, I think as a writer, that's a nice way of describing it. I thought, Fuckwit basically was the idea of Bizarro as a clone of Superman is he, says everything backwards, whatever. The Fuckwit character was like Superman with downs. That's how they describe it.
Right. They didn't beat around the bush so much. They weren't like he's simple. They were like, no, he's retarded.
Yeah.
And they went with it like that.
Yeah.
And how would supervillains treat someone who is retarded?
Right.
Not
very well.
No, yeah. So I think the comic book allegories I picked up right on, right out of the gate. And I like those kind of stories. I mean, I think that,
Had a lot of them.
Yeah, no, but I will read any day. And I've talked about my fondness for the Elseworlds series. I mean, Millar also wrote Superman Red Sun, which is probably one of the best Superman Elseworlds stories that I've read, where what if Superman was a communist and all that type of thing. They're so much fun to read, and like that was another thing. Like I like imagining the world. Like I don't know if he had ever. This is supposed to be part of his Millar World line of comics through Top Cow, which didn't really take off.
No,
but
they released like 6 series in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I stopped reading most of them after an issue or two.
Right. But I would have loved to seen this universe expanded and see more of it.
It wasn't like a shared universe, I don't think, though.
No. But this universe.
There was like he was like this wasn't the only.
There's the Jesus one.
Yeah, the Chosen.
The Chosen. Yeah.
Which was like literally, what if Jesus was born? And I read it and it made me uncomfortable. I'm not religious and it made me uncomfortable. I was just like, I don't feel like I should be reading this.
So what else did you like about it besides?
I'm not actually a Mark Millar fan. That should be I don't like his stuff that often.
Yeah, I think I am
this
too.
book actually was the thing that kind of turned me off from him. I stopped reading Mark Millar after this for a while. That and Trouble.
Oh, I remember Trouble. That was the Spider-Man's parents' teen drama.
However,
which I liked.
There was the things that I said that I didn't like about this book actually don't have to do with the way that I don't usually like Mark Millar stuff. This is actually really, really good from a comic book structural standpoint, from a writing standpoint. This is some of the strongest work that he's done. Thematically, it made me uncomfortable and I didn't like it. But otherwise, I really thought he put a lot of thought into this. He put a lot of structure into it. I thought some of the characters were really well done. I thought one of the things that struck me was I was talking about Fuckwit, but also the Doll Man. I think Dollmaker, whichever. That was really interesting because he lived at home. He had a wife and kids, and they didn't know.
He had a secret identity,
and like it was such a contrast to everything else that we had seen from the thing. I thought that was really good. I thought the character arcs of Wesley were very nice, and like he laid everything out. It was very nice dialogue. There was very.
I think it was one of his stronger works I've read in a while.
Technically, it was very strong.
Now, there's been once I read it, I then immediately went to people who have read it and said, "What do you think of it?" And I was getting people's opinions, and I was surprised to find out there's a very visceral reaction to the ending. I did not have this reaction, but a friend of mine.
Mine was less in knowing it was coming.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was coming.
No, knowing the ending was going to was designed to cause a visceral reaction, because clearly it was. He took it to the comic fans at the end.
But so at the end of it, it ends with basically Wesley accepting his fate and becoming the whole thing, and then it kind of becomes the camera turns from Wesley to you, the reader, and kind of says, "Yeah, but look at you! You just laid out money to read this comic," and it's kind of a big fu to the reader. And it broke that fourth wall.
That way at all.
Oh, okay. Because the thing is. That's how it's been interpreted.
So people took it as Millar saying "fuck you."
Yeah, exactly. Like, look, I just got you to buy 6 issues of this comic, and it was a big middle finger to it.
Well, no, it was part of. It's not at all. It's part of the theme of you're trapped in your
right.
I think it was also the character. What the character would have said to you.
Right.
Were he real and you were real? That's what he would have said to you, and that's how I took it.
Yeah, and this person I was talking to said they loved it up until the last 3 pages, because when that happened, they took it personally. And I know I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's out there. You know what I mean? Like, because it's a direct, because they never show the person. It shows a hand in the comic book store laying out money, going, that was my life. You're living my life, and now I'm so much cooler than you.
Well, that was the point of it. Is to break away from your boring life that you're trapped in.
Yes, and so I tend to agree with that. I like the ending, but I'm just saying that some people took that a little.
I actually really liked the ending.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was like the end of Fight Club.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, it really was. It was.
Yeah. So when they announced they were doing the movie and Angelina Jolie and Morgan Freeman and stuff like that, I got really excited.
James McAvoy.
Yeah, James McAvoy is the guy. Yeah. So I mean, if you enjoyed the movie, and hopefully, I'm sure a lot of people will.
Or if you didn't enjoy the movie and you thought, it needed more rape.
Yeah, check out the comic. It's still Top Cow Image is putting out. They've got a trade paperback version of it. I think there's a hardcover version of it. It's pretty.
There's gonna be a lot of versions of it.
Yeah.
Probably. You're not gonna have a hard time finding the trade paperback of Wanted as featured in the major motion picture, featuring Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy.
So, if you have any questions about Wanted or about this episode or any other ones, you can email us at contact@ifanboy.com.
Or you can call the voicemail line and rave or rant, as it were, at 888-3263. Wow.
You had an aneurysm.
888 fanboys 3262697. Read it here.
Wow. Or you can go to iFanboy.com and check out all the stuff we got going there, including the weekly audio podcast. And you can go to revision3.com/iFanboy to see all of our shows, including our daily, weekday mini show.
And if you saw the movie, if you read the comic book, head over to iFanboy.com or revision3.com/iFanboy forums. Tell everybody what you thought. We really want to hear what everybody thinks about it. To me, if you ask me, this movie is fairly important because it's from an Image comic. It's not from one of the big two. It's, I think this is a good thing for comic book movies as we move away from the things we know.
But except they're not marketing
the most sociopathic thing
well,
that they could possibly. This is what comic book fans have been really waiting for. Is that can we live up to a stereotype? Yes, yes we can. I like things that blow up and boobies, and that's all I like.
The car scene, great.
Do you know I can curve a bullet?
So